What I find about the integration of faith at work is it occurs at different levels. It can be likened to, say, the floors of a building. So on the ground floor you have basic ethical precepts, moral ideals, being honest, being open, adhering to the law, things that we would all say, yeah, these are sort of basic requirements. Sadly, not always have Christians done that. It was striking to me that two of the biggest perpetrators of corporate fraud in U.S. history, which occurred at Enron and at WorldCom, were perpetrated by church-going Christian business leaders. So we certainly don't have a corner on the market of integrity. Nonetheless, we can all agree that at a basic fundamental level, people aspire to have their faith make a difference in how they run their companies and how they live out their lives in terms of basic ethics. The next level up is where faith begins to influence the internal dynamics of the company. So the person might attend a Bible study at their workplace. They might be involved in a prayer meeting that occurs before or after work, but it's held on the company facilities. Then you get to the next level, which is where faith not only influences their ethics, it not only influences the internal dynamics of their company, but also the external dynamics. So it begins to affect advertising decisions. Who are the people that they use to identify with their brands, and how does that affect their persona in the marketplace? And then you have some organizations who take it to the fourth level of integration, which is where it influences not just the ethics, the internal and external dynamics of the company, but it actually shapes the very mission of the firm. Organizations like Herman Miller, the furniture maker, Max Dupree, who has a Fuller connection, was a CEO there for many years. You can think of ServiceMaster, based out of Chicago, or of restaurant companies like Chick-fil-A. All of these are organizations whereby honoring God is understood to be a core part of actual mission of the organization. And so it reshapes some of the priorities and decisions that they make in that particular firm. What we find is that there's real disagreement or differences of opinion on these modes of integration if you're at a public company versus a private company. So one of the things that pastors have to really pay attention to is what's the context in which this particular business leader is having to act out their faith. Because if you're the CEO of a Fortune 1000 company, you have entirely different sort of regulatory environment, different kind of constituents, stakeholders. It has a different feel than if you are the head of an entrepreneurial startup that you founded yourself. Just as a pastor in Berkeley, California has a different kind of attitude and public self-presentation, right, for the church in that community than you would, say, in Wheaton, Illinois. The gospel is still equally vital in both communities, but it's embodied in different ways. There's a wonderful new book that's come out by the dean at Seattle Pacific University, the dean of business school, Jeff Van Duzer, that's looking at how business can be understood as accomplishing God's work. And in my opinion, there are two things that businesses can do that can make a real difference. One is they can produce workplaces that shape people in the right ways. We're more influenced by our workplace environment than we are by our church because we spend so much more time at work. So how it habituates our lives, how we understand the rhythm of our life, rest, worship, and the interplays with those two things and the sense of work, the frenzy, harried nature of our professional lives, how do those two things fit together? The workplace can actually shape that in significant ways. So business leaders have an important role in shaping the lives of their employees and in turn shaping sort of the spiritual climate in which those organizations exist. The second thing is that businesses can actually create goods that make a difference in the world. Not every shoe is a good shoe. Not every widget is one that honors God. And yet there are some that can more faithfully honor Him because of the ways in which things are produced and because of the good that it does in society. It's not just about process, it's also about using whatever we make, whether it be food or commercial products or consumer goods, that can actually be a part of extending God's shalom in the world. I really love the notion that Kim Meyer says culture is God's creation and what we make of it, in both senses of make, right? And so that there is a sense of how we interpret God's creation, but also what we fashion together. As a professor, I'm not necessarily making products, but I'm helping to shape minds. And so it's important to be thinking that we're about important work, right? That the work that we're doing actually is making a difference, not just because I can use my position as a university professor to have a platform for evangelism, but actually because I'm helping to better the lives of the people that I'm around, and hopefully we're producing work that actually makes a difference in the marketplace of ideas. I think that that's what pastors can help their business leaders do. I think that a richer understanding of what a theology of the workplace could mean, not just for the church, but also for our culture.